I have to prepare
Apparently, that
for
wasn't the
ôn thi cuối
case.
kỳ.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, that was fine, but you should have told me about it. That's all. And as you can tell, I'm only saying these words because I'm afraid of some power from the higher up. Okay. Well, with that being said, things are already sorted out on my end, so let's just get the ball rolling. Hello, Miss Rena. Hello, Miss Hương. Hello, Châu, Zhang, and Zui. We're gonna get the lesson started. This is what we're gonna do today. Well, last week, can you imagine that 1 week has already passed from that disastrous, or maybe not disastrous, but just very passionate lesson. Can you imagine? Only 1 week has passed. My God. And we're none of us is a billionaire. So something is wrong with us. Something is maybe not something is wrong, but something needs to be done, right? To take us all the way to that level. I'd like to have a class with like, 6 billionaires. I mean, that would be a lit session. Hold on. What am I supposed to do now? Okay. I need to share the document. Not quite sure what I need to look at because there's just so many windows. I think this is the one. Can you see it? Miss Rena, can you see it? Miss Rena, we cannot hear anything from your end. Well then,
Can
thank
you
you,
hear
Miss
me?
Rena. Oh, I can hear you now. Can you see
I
anything
cannot
on
see
my
any.
screen?
No.
Nothing?
Yeah, it's just black.
Can you see it now?
Mm, not yet.
People, can you see anything on my screen? I'm showing you something. Tell, can you see it?
Yes, I can see.
The screen, right?
Oh,
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm definitely gonna need to stop sharing my screen so that I can ask you guys questions. Okay. But today we're gonna move on to a different group of topics, which is well, places. Okay. Um, that's all, I guess. Now let's get started. Hmm. Oh, before we start, I'd like you all to bear in mind some of the crucial things that you need to do in the speaking test. Or maybe you should remind me of what you need to do as you answer speaking questions. You can just type it out in the chat box. I think that I can still remember what each of you needs to do. So I might refute some of the things that you're gonna put in the comment section. But well, just take the ball and run with it. What do you need to bear in mind as you do the speaking test? Type one thing. What is the most important thing for you? For me, it would be to just calm down and make sure that I maintain a high level of fluency and flexibility. Yeah. Okay, so for Z, it is using ideas or phrases from model answers. That's a rather odd focus, but okay. The rest of you, type it in. People, we need to move things along. Rena, yes, Miss Rena, you definitely need to stretch some words out. Not all the time, but in a lot of cases, you need to do that. Miss Hung, give rather detailed answers rather than listing ideas. Well, that's a valid response, although I'm not quite sure if that's something that I advised you to focus on. But it's valid. Giang, Châu, Châu Giang, fine. And who else? Oh, Chang Võ. Try to use the same ideas. Yes, I do remember that. Good job. At least there's a focus. Fine. Do you know what you need to do outside of informing me when you can't show up in your support sessions? You know what? This is, I guess, a problem. It's a mental issue for me, you know? Like when I tell you that, look, I'm gonna turn over a new leaf and become a more positive person, apparently I just can't practice what I preach. I always end up using like that sort of like passive aggressive kind of tone to talk to people, which is why apparently I'm blowing up all of my blessings. My God. Oh my God. I wish I could be, you know, super unbothered. But in order for that to happen, I'm gonna need like 50 billion VND in a bank account. And then I'm gonna look at everyone with my nose turned all the way up like this. Yes, I'm listening to you. Okay, for Cho sentence stress, I agree. Although for you, Cho, I think that I have stressed a different objective as well, that is. Zhang, extend the idea with explanation example. Yes, that's something you need to bear in mind. Okay, now let's get the ball rolling. I'm not quite sure if these topics are going to be easy for you, but the thing is that like the topics related to places tend to be pretty common, and ideas related to these topics are pretty versatile as well. Right? So make sure that you get your fair share of practice with topics such as the ones that we're gonna cover today. Okay. Now let's talk about hometown. Chang Võ, please. Where do you come from? Chang Võ, you need to turn on the microphone. Well, okay. Well, then I'm going to ask someone else then. Duy, please. Where do you come from?
Well, when it comes to hometown, many people in Vietnam often assume that your hometown is your dad's hometown. And in that case, my hometown is Hanoi, the capital city of Vietnam.
Thank you. Is there anything that you'd like to change about your hometown?
Well, certainly there are certain aspects that leaves more to be desired. Off the top of my head is pollution, because the city has suffered from overpopulation for decades, and that certainly has taken a toll on the environment. Other than that, I feel like at night it's a little difficult to sleep because of noise pollution. So it, although there have been rules to kind of mitigate how much noise you will get at night, they don't seem to be enough for the time being.
Thank you. Well, then, would you recommend other people to come and live in your hometown?
Well, I should say it depends. For people that want to explore both the cultural value of Vietnam and want to land a dream job in terms of high income, then Hanoi is worth a try. But for someone that prefer more, stable and more relaxed way of living, then I would recommend somewhere else, uh, like somewhere in the countryside of Vietnam.
Thank you. That should be fine. We're going to move on to quiet places. Okay. Now, Zhang, please. Is your area quiet?
To be honest, my area was quiet in the past, but now it is industrialized. So there are many building and many factories are built. So it is very noisy.
Thank you. Well then, do you often go to quiet areas on the weekend?
Yes, definitely. My area have many factories that is built, but there are also many rice fields that make me feel relaxed. And rice field is a place that I often cycle around to immerse myself in the nature.
Thank you. Well, do you think that Vietnamese people enjoy living in quiet areas?
I think it depends. Vietnamese people, according to Vietnamese people, when they are done, they want to go to places that are busy. They want to have more entertainment place. So they often choose the city such as Hanoi capital or Da Nang, where have many entertainment places and many people.
Thank you.
But
That should be fine. Let's move on then, Khả Anh. Is your area quiet?
Well, I would say the noise level of where I live ranges at the average level because like it's rarely and only noisy and disturbing at the rush hour because my home is at the center of the city, so it's like avoidable sometimes, but still endurable.
Just a moment. Okay. Well then, do you prefer studying in a quiet or noisy place?
Well, I would say a quiet place, because I think myself is I'm the one who gets distracted easily by noise in the background. So like I can only focus 100% when I'm in a clutter-free environment with no noise in the background.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to the second part of the speaking test. Okay. I think that there's a focus to today's lesson. Well, there's always a focus to what I do. And bear this in mind. I remember what you all need to focus on. The problem is you guys cannot remember that. But that's something we can work on, all right? Let's stay positive. Oh, my God. I mean, like, I have friends who are super optimistic and they always say nice things to other people. And I can't figure out for the life of me how they can even do that because, well, I clearly don't have that in me. It takes me everything to go out of my way and say positive things to people. And it's not that, I'm ungrateful for all the wonderful things I have in life. It's just that how can you be so positive and cheerful all the time? Anyway, I want to give you all 1 minute to prepare for this topic, and then I'm going to select my champion randomly. Okay? You all have 1 minute to prepare for this topic. I'd like you to describe the house of someone the home, not the house, the home of someone that you know. Remember, you can speak about this topic between 1 and 2 minutes, and don't worry if I stop you. I need to do something about this so that I can make comments. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now. Pause. You should still be able to see the topic, but not my comments. Okay. Hương, please. Remember, you can speak about this topic between 1 and 2 minutes. Don't worry if I stop you. You should start speaking now, please.
Yes, so today I'm going to talk about my parents' house. So it is another house of ours, and it is located at the heart of Hanoi, which is in the Tendeng Street, which is quite near to top universities like National Economic Universities or Hanoi Technology and Science University. So it is such a great position for you, especially if you need to study in those universities. And we have it for rent. So basically, there are 3 rooms that are rented out for office workers, and the remaining rooms are still available. And I mean, what I really enjoy about this house is that in each room it has, I mean, massive floor to ceiling windows. So for example, when you finish your work and you need to, take a short break, you can just look out and take in this beautiful view of the city. And it really can help you to clear your mind a little bit. And what is so special about that is that we have this lovely rooftop garden, and my dad and I plan different types of vegetables. Yeah, we have, I mean, like maybe fresh mint, Malabar spinach, or sometimes it could be like morning glory, like a lot of plants. So every day, my dad and I would visit the house, and we would, water the plants, pick some vegetables for our meals, and just take care of the plants. And I don't know if you have this wonderful chance to take care of plants. It is such
Thank
a
you.
nice.
That should be fine. Hold on just a moment. Okay, but then there's supposed to be a follow-up question, but has slipped my mind. So what should I ask you now? But then who recommended you to me? Or how did you find out about me? I mean, I have to ask you something.
How do I know you?
Yes.
Oh, that is actually something I want to share with you, because 7 years ago, I started with you. Yes.
What? 7
Yes.
years ago?
7 years ago, when I finished my university entrance exam, and you was a teacher in Võ Thùy Linh, if you still remember her.
Yes, I do remember her.
Yes.
So you were part of that class, huh?
Yes, but I only studied for maybe 1 to 2 classes, because at that time I didn't have any intention to take IELTS course, because I have no intention to study abroad, and my work at that time didn't require me to have any IELTS certificate. So yeah, I quit after just a few classes. But I knew them. I knew you from that time. And 7 years later, when I was searching for an English teacher, and there are a lot of English centers nowadays online, and I don't know which to trust. So randomly, when I was surfing on Facebook, and I saw your post, and that's it. I didn't think much. I just went for it. Yeah, so I mean, it's like I feel like this is a very, I don't know how to say it in English. I really cannot find the right word.
It was meant to be.
Yeah,
It was
was
meant to
like,
be.
yeah, it was meant to be. Yeah, so I really appreciate this. And I mean, like,
Ah,
I really want to tell you this, but I haven't found the right occasion because I feel like maybe you would find it weird. Like, it's so weird. So I haven't told you yet.
no, not at all. Not at
Yeah.
all. Thank you for sharing that story. I asked the correct question today.
Yes,
Ah,
yes, I really want to tell you that. Like, I really
right.
appreciate this. Yeah.
I mean, it's a good story, people. It's a good story, especially, if you're a teacher. Perhaps somewhere down the line, you'll get that sort of fun as well,
Yes.
right? Okay. Well, thank you. That was a bit of a long answer for a follow-up question, but I appreciate it a lot. Yeah, thank you. Let's continue. Now, Miss Bảo Châu, please. Wait, hold on. Châu did it last time. I'm gonna need someone else.
Oh,
But wait, hold on. I don't have so many people to choose from.
I can feel that you will
Uh,
choose me.
huh? Châu, what would you say?
I can feel that you will choose me for the next time.
You felt like I was about to choose you.
Yes, I will be your next victim.
Not victim, champion.
Okay.
We're using a different set of vocabulary from this point on, Châu. Do you remember? I told you this story in Vietnamese as well. I cannot afford to mess up my blessings. I have a future in a gigantic mansion in Riverside, Vinhome's Riverside, in a mansion that's worth like 400 billion VND. I deserve a future like that. But if I keep on calling you, victims and horrible and words of that nature, I don't think that I have enough blessings to compensate, for these negative comments. Okay.
Okay, so
So
now I
yes,
will be your champion and you will have a mention in the bằng lăng, cái khu bằng lăng.
yes, but no, you're not my champion today, girl. Don't be presumptuous. I'm gonna need to call someone else. I want to talk to who did I call last week? Oh, okay. Now, Miss Rina, please. Can you see the topic?
Yes, I can.
You can still see the topic, right? Describe the home of someone you know.
Yeah.
Okay, good luck. Remember, you can speak about this topic between 1 and 2 minutes. And don't worry if I stop you. You should start speaking now, please.
Okay, so a house that I'm quite familiar with is my close friend Ming's house. I would say it is a modern apartment, and it really reflects her personality. And actually, we have known each other for years, so I often pass by her house. And since she has kind of quite a busy lifestyle, she prefers a clean and minimalist space where she can relax after work. And what I find particularly impressive about her house is how much effort she has put into designing it. At first, she told me that it was so hard to wrap her head around how to decorate the place, and there was definitely a steep learning curve, new designing skill, especially since this was the first time she lived independently. However, I believe that over time she just can manage it so well. I mean, like she even can create a space that is both stylish and functional. The apartment has an open layout and is designed with a neutral color, which makes it look both modern and comfortable. Um, Also, it is equipped. I mean, like it is very well equipped with a lot of state-of-the-art household equipment, such as the latest version of robotic vacuum cleaner. And to be honest, I have learned quite a lot from the way she designed her house, and I have kind of
Thank you.
started.
That should be fine. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but Didn't I tell you that when you were speaking, it was like the longest 2 minutes I had ever had,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
deja vu. I do have to be honest, Miss Rena. I felt the same way today. That was so long.
Why?
I was like,
Why?
wow, hold on, she's still going. Yes, but I was looking at the timer or the stop. I don't know what it is, but
Mhm.
it was still flowing and you were still navigating your speech. I'm like, oh my God, the lady is still going. When is
I
the
mean,
time? When is the time up again?
wrong. What's wrong with that? What's wrong
No,
with
it was not a
the way
problem. It was not a problem. I just felt like, when I do the speaking test, time seems to just fly. And I often, speaks for more than 2 minutes. And I feel like most of my speeches tend to be even shorter, in terms of, how they are perceived, not, the actual time that it takes that, they take to finish. It's just that when I was listening to you, I just kept on wondering at the back of my mind, like, oh my God, this lady is still going. But it is not a negative thing.
Yeah.
That's all. Well,
Okay,
there's
voice
supposed to
or
be a
something
no,
like
no, no, no,
something
no.
wrong.
It was just a thing, or maybe it's because I tend to speak fast. So like for someone who speaks with the speed that you do, then it may sound a bit slow to my ears. I actually felt the same way
Mhm.
when we were still working together. Yeah, I thought that you were speaking too slowly.
Really?
Yes. Yes. I was the one who was speaking really fast, just as Miss Mai as well. Yes. That lady was speaking really fast as well, whereas you were really taking your time to articulate your thoughts, which was nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know because I'm just trying to slow down a bit to stretch my words and make it more precise. I'm just trying to do it.
Well, I can't show you the comments now, but I can confirm that it worked.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Thank you.
let's move on. In the next part of the test, I'm going to ask you a few questions, not ask you, sorry, wrong intro. I'd like to discuss with you one or two general questions related to what some of you have been talking about. Let's first talk about types of homes. Bảo Châu, please. What kinds of home are popular in Vietnam?
I think nowadays apartment have become more and more popular in Vietnam because of its facilities, like under a tower there will be a lot of shop that the resident here um, can shop for grocery or like go to the gym every day. So I think that is really popular now.
Hmm. Okay, well then, do you think that in the future people will continue living in that type of home?
I think it depends because um it had a great advantage that it's really convenient, but for some beside that, I think that it will be not like it will be not good for permanent life because like we have to go to live in a high floor, and I think live in a house in a normal house is better because we can sell it for better price, and it also have a like I think that
Thank you. That should be fine. Thank you. Let's move on then. Chang Võ. Oh, Chang Võ is no longer in the room with us. So more time for the rest of you. Yes, let's continue. Zui. Yes, Châu, thank you for taking on the mantle of my champion in the short 1 minute that you were able to cover 2 questions. Zui, please. Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages of living in a house?
Like, you mean in a detached house instead of an apartment? Well, when you live like separated from other houses, chances are you can enjoy a higher degree of privacy. There are a few noises from the neighborhood, and people are less likely to be nosy about um, your personal situation. And on top of that, you you're likely enjoyed a more spacious living area as well. In large complexes like in an apartment building, chances are there are a lot of rooms in a very tightly packed area. So in a detached house, for instance, you can live very comfortably because of more area, so that you can have more rooms. You can buy more you can buy more equipment, things like that.
Okay. But then, why are some people willing to pay lots of money to buy houses in certain locations?
Well, I think people certainly vary in their personality and their personal needs. So it is kind of understandable why some people choose seemingly strange locations for living. For instance, some of my neighbors actually moved out recently to go to a place that I would describe as in the middle of nowhere. But when I messaged them about the decision, they were just happy, or even more. They were even happier than when they were living closer to us. And the main reason was that they could enjoy a higher sense of privacy, and they didn't have to worry too much about noises and about all the like mutual and community responsibilities that many
Thank
other
you.
people expect.
That should be fine. Now let's talk about something that I might know a thing or two about: housing prices. Zhang, please. In your opinion, what are the factors that can influence the price of a place?
I think there are many factors that influence the price. With the most notable being the fact that the area has have good weather, or there are many entertainment places of modern facilities surrounded. So the houses in this area is more and more increasing. And I think the other factor is the fact that this area has the potential to boost economy, like next to the beach. Next to the beach has many possibility to improve economy by buying building to accommodate the tourist, or um or the people around that area.
Thank you. Some people are accumulating, as in they're buying, houses and apartments. Do you think that, a person should be allowed to own a lot of property like that?
Can you paraphrase the question?
Some people buy lots of houses and apartments. Now, these are property. Do you think that, a person should be allowed to have like lots of property? As in like lots of apartments and buildings?
I think shouldn't allow them to have many apartments because the population is increasingly at the current, so there are less places for them to live. So I believe that the government should have some policy to blame on them.
Thank you. That should be it. Let's move on then. Khả, please. We're gonna
Yes.
we're gonna continue talking about housing prices. Why are some people willing to pay lots of money for an apartment?
Well, I think the first reason that come up to my mind is about social status. I mean, a lot of people like they willing to project their identity on, by showing off what they purchase or what they own, including a expensive and luxury flashy apartment. So I mean, they still feel okay with splurging a lot of money on a apartment that they don't even live in, especially with the wealth. And the second
Do you think
reason,
that in the future, this tendency will become even more popular?
I would say yes, because it's about second reason I'm gonna talk about is that about money laundering. Like a lot of people, especially the wealth, they buy a lot of real estates, including apartment, just to in order to justify their money. Like they turn their bad money into something that is clean
Thank you.
by buying
That should be
this.
fine. Thank you. Now, I had to put a stop to that because you are not you're not disclosing my secret, okay? I'm gonna be one of those filthy rich people in the near future, and you're not gonna spill the beans, okay? I plan to do that when I've accumulated enough money. So you keep a stiff upper lip about that, okay? Thank you, Khả, and your surprisingly insightful understanding into what rich people like Keely in the future can do. Let's continue then. Hương, please. Let's talk about home ownership. As I've mentioned, some people buy lots of houses and apartments. Do you think that it's a positive thing?
Well, in my perspective, as a person who can buy a lot of properties, I would say it is a positive thing because owning a lot of properties mean that I can use it for different type of purposes. For example, I can just wait for the price to go up and I will sell it and I will earn a lot of profit. Another thing is that I can use the properties to, for rent or use it for my business, for example, if I have any future. Yeah, so for example, I can use it as a kind of, factory or some things that my employees in the future could stay there and work. So yeah, I think as a person who can purchase a lot of properties, it's a good thing, but maybe it's not that good for other people in the society who, are homeless and have nowhere to go.
Well then, should we discourage people from accumulating property in that way?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, like, it really depends on the situation, the development of the society. I mean, in Vietnam, for example, the situation is not that worse to stop people from owning a lot of properties. I mean, people in the society nowadays can still buy or rent a very average apartment in cities, or maybe if they don't want to, they can live comfortably in the countryside or, on the
Thank you.
outskirts.
That should be fine. That should be fine. Now, Miss Rena, please. We're gonna continue talking about home ownership. In your opinion, what might change about the way that people buy property in the future?
Oh, sorry. Okay, so what might change about the way people buy house? Well, I believe that there will be several major changes in the way people purchase property in the future. I would say that first, technology might play a very much bigger role. For example, people may rely more on virtual tours and online platforms like e-commerce, like e-commercial platforms now, which means they are able to visit a property in person before making decision, but without really going there.
Okay, so essentially what you're saying is that people might be able to buy a house just by
Yes, like they can
looking at it on the internet?
Yes, they can take a virtual tours with like a
Do you think that it's a positive development?
Yeah, I think so. I believe so because first, it is very time saving. People can without traveling, to a destination, and they still can take a virtual tour with a 4D technology. They are able to look around the house and check.
Well then,
all
thank
the
you.
material.
Is there any disadvantage to that sort of development?
Well, the most obvious drawback of that kind of online purchase, I would say that maybe it is a lack of flexibility. If someone buys a house or apartment, it becomes much harder for them to kind of fight. I mean, like a
Thank you. That's the end of the
Yes.
speaking test. Okay, people, I have already sent you all the link to the file. You know what? I think that you all did a fine job today. I mean, you all were able to kind of, hit the nail on the head in a way. I mean, you said that you needed to focus on something at the beginning of the class, and I think that most of you were able to fulfill what you set out to do. For instance, Miss Rena, you wanted to stretch certain words out. You managed to do that. I didn't feel like your answer, in speaking part 2 was overly choppy, like what it was last week. So, it's certainly an improvement. Zhang has certainly improved in leaps and bounds, although I'm not saying that, you're on a different band score just by, answering these questions the way you did. I'm just saying that in comparison to what you did last week, you have improved a lot, right? And you should use that momentum to, keep on progressing, okay? For Zui, I feel like this time around, your usage of vocabulary items was a lot more natural, except for the very first thing that you said, something about your hometown, like it was overly complex for no reason. I mean, I guess you can say something like that, but if I were you, I would just say something like, well, I have 2 hometowns. So my dad is from where and where, and my mom is from where and where. And then, in Vietnam, the dad's hometown is often considered, to be the hometown of the son. So I'm gonna go with that, right? I just feel like it was a bit weird for you to, answer a rather simple question in such a complicated manner. That's all, right? leave something out to be desired. I thought that it was a nice phrase, but your pronunciation was in a way undermined by how your volume kind of dipped in and out, of the conversation. So yeah, okay, that was fine. And you were complaining about the fact that, your hometown was, polluted with all kinds of things. I wish that you ended it on a better note. I think that you should have said something like, well, I like the authorities to do something about that. I mean, that would be an appropriate end to your answer. Essentially, you just left me hanging, and you were complaining about, all of the things that were missing from the equation, but you didn't try to, patch things together, at the end of that answer. Okay, so try to do something about that. Now, for Zhang, to be honest, I thought that, you displayed a wonderful rhythm in that particular phrase. Like, to be honest, you don't say to be honest, you said to be honest, which was a very nice rhythm. So I'm gonna commend you on that. It is industrialized. Fine. I thought that it was a bit too slow. That's all. Now, so repeat after me. It's industrialized now.
Is industrialized now.
Almost there. It's industrialized now.
Is industrialized now.
No, the stress is on the word dust. Industrialized. Industrialized.
Industrialized.
No.
Industrialized.
Industrialized. Industrialized now.
Industrialized now.
No, you say trio. Industrial. Trio. It's the
Trio.
tree. You say tree,
Trio.
not
Trio.
it's trio. It's more like it has to go down a slope, not like this. It's industrialized now.
Is industrialized now.
Not quite there. Okay, let's move on then. Factories that is built. Factories that were built recently.
Factory that were built recently.
No. Factories that were built recently.
Factory that were built recently.
Ending sound. Factories that were built recently.
Factories that were built recently.
A bit too slow, in my opinion. It was reedy. Let's continue. Choose cities such as Hanoi and Da Nang.
Choose cities such as Hanoi and Da Nang.
Thank you. Let's move on then. So overall, it was an improvement, Zhang, but I feel like you're still on that rather precarious slope. I mean, if you don't try to move forward and upward, you're gonna fall down. You're gonna slide down. You're gonna get back to that square one. So, well, more power to you. Do whatever it is that you did last week to maintain your momentum, right? And I think that after maybe 1 month, you might be able to, just catch your break, because at the moment I feel like you're still on that slope. It's just a slope like this. If you don't move forward, you're gonna slide down, which is exasperating. But well, what else can we do? Thank you then, Zach. Kind, because my home is okay. So you were talking about something or another. I felt like your pacing was a bit weird when you were talking about the fact that, your house was probably in the city center, and the noise from the traffic during rush hours was virtually inevitable. I just thought that the pacing was a bit too fast. Like you went through that phase a bit too fast. Okay. Fine, got it.
Yes.
Avoidable. Do you say inevitable, like unavoidable?
Yes. Oh, at first I thought about inevitable, but I think I thought that word wasn't true, so I chose unavoidable. unavoidable instead.
Okay, well, I think that I missed the un part, so I thought that you were saying avoidable, which didn't make sense, right? It's better for you to say
Yes.
inevitable. Okay, and also quiet place, not quite place. It's quiet.
Okay.
Okay, that should be fine then. Let's continue. Look, I thought that all of you did a fine job in part 1, but fine is not the same as very good or expert kind of good. But still, I think that all 3 of you improved. Now, for speaking part 2, for Miss Rena, I have to say, I mean, there was no comment. I thought that it was like the perfect response. Yes, lady, you slay. That was a fantastic answer. You only mispronounced one word, modern. It's modern,
Modern.
not r in the middle. It's just modern.
Ah, okay. Modern.
No, there's
No.
still an there's still a r in the middle. Just modern.
Just modern.
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 Yes. So it's quite a modern place.
Modern.
There's a row there, but you don't actually pronounce it. Okay. Well, outside of that very simple error, which unfortunately pinged on my radar, everything else was perfect. In fact, yeah, I was so captivated by the way that you delivered your answer that I didn't notice what you were saying at all. I just felt like, oh my God, the lady is she's still going? When is this gonna end? That's all. But that was a very good impression. To be honest, I didn't hear a single word you said. I just thought that, okay, wow, that's a very nice flow. Okay. Now for Hung, you also had a very nice flow, but towards the end of your speech, I felt like you started losing control just a little bit. For instance, this word here, morning glory, I don't really think that this is a very common name for, a vegetable. You might say, well, it's a very special type of vegetable. I'm not quite sure what the English word for it is, but here in Vietnam, we call it morning glory or rau muống. Understand? Like there are certain words that you can guarantee that they're correct, like spinach, water spinach, cabbage, right? But for this particular plant, morning glory, I just think that it was a bit of a risky decision, right? So if I were you, I would say something like, and a very special plant, which is called morning glory in English, but I'm not quite sure if it's a common name. It's just that like it's rau muống in Vietnamese, right? Say something like that, okay? Take care of plants. Take care of plants. And I thought that your pronunciation was, how should I say this, like textbook accurate. It was fine. Everything sounded very lovely, but what I think that I have already made this comment once or twice before. This is the kind of pronunciation that's gonna like immediately strike a chord with the person that's listening to you. But for examiners, this this accent might incur, how should I say this? I'm not quite sure if I should be presumptuous here, but I feel like look, if I were an examiner and I heard this type of accent, I would be extra harsh on the person that I'm speaking to, or I'm evaluating the speaking skill of. And it's mostly because I would be super curious about whether or not you could actually manage different conversational situations while still maintaining this accent, or if you would fall apart under pressure. You understand, Hung? Like, hold on. You were there 7 years ago when I was, fresh out of my university. Do you have any impression of me from that time?
I still remember. It felt like yesterday. I remember that you earned like 8.0
Yes.
in IELTS, and
Yes.
I felt like you was quite cold.
Mm.
You was quite cold, and all the students were afraid of you.
Mm.
Yes, but I mean, like I was so impressed. Like I maybe I followed you on Facebook. Maybe I request like I sent you the friend request, but I thought like maybe you wasn't interested. So so
Way back then.
yes. So
Oh, okay.
I have been your one of your followers for maybe 7 to 8 years.
But okay, fine. I mean, you sort of went off the rail there. I didn't ask for all of that, but thank you for oversharing. Look, the point that I'm trying to get to is that, 7 years ago, when I was, fresh out of the gate, I think that I spoke the same way that you do now. My accent was super British at the time. It was so British that the only British teacher in that building walked across my room a couple of times. And then he asked Miss Ling about whether or not I was, from the UK, right?
Oh my gosh.
So at the time, though, I thought that like that was the cherry on top. My accent like was the best thing about, my speaking skill, and I focused excessively on that. So,
Yeah.
I thought that, okay, sure, I have this lovely accent, and I'm gonna, squeeze everything out of it. But, when I took the test after 2 years of teaching at that center, I only got 8 for speaking.
Oh
And
yeah.
I was stuck at that band score for a while. And then, when I started working with Miss Rena here in a different center, all right, Miss Rena, the center I'm talking about. But, when I started working there, I essentially just, loosened up a little bit. So all right, I was thinking to myself that, all right, so I have a nice accent, but I'm going to need to focus on other things as well, like the rhythm and the use of idioms, and I guess, the general flexibility and things like that. So I was able to jump from, like a very shaky 8 to an 8.5, and then later to a 9. And it was mostly because I was able to shake off the idea that, my pronunciation was the most important feature of my speaking skill. You understand? So I said all that to say that, your accent is very nice now, but I hope that you don't harbor the wrong idea with regard to how examiners are going to evaluate you. Your students and the person that's going to talk to you might be super impressed by your like textbook accurate kind of accent. I think that your accent is, something that Cho might be listening to during her classroom hours, or something like that, right? So it's very textbook accurate, but don't confine yourself to only that feature, because the speaking test evaluates more than just how you pronounce certain words. It's also about how you can go up and down, how you can go fast and slow, how you can use ideas and vocabulary in a flexible kind of way, how you can like use fillers from time to time instead of confining yourself to just one type of rhythm. Okay, so it's not something that I haven't told you, but I like to remind you of the fact that if you focus excessively on your pronunciation, I don't think that that's a battle that you can win. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, teacher.
Okay. Yes, but yeah, I think that your impression of me from the time um was accurate. I mean, I was distant. I try to be as distant as possible. Okay, let's continue then for part 3.
I mean, like there's one girl in our class. She really
Mm.
admired you, and I mean, like she always told me that she would wear like great clothes to impress you.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
this was
she had
quite
a
cute.
kind heart. Okay, thank you, Hương. Let's continue. Cho, champion. you were not championing today. Your answer for the very first question was very short. And then there were a couple of pronunciation errors along the way, right? Because, one more time.
Okay.
Because, repeat.
Because.
Also, try to pronounce the z, as in like a B. Try to pronounce that sound. One more time. Because. Not because. Not because, it's because.
Because.
Yeah, can you make that sound effect of a B? Z. Yes, that sort of sound. I like you to produce that kind of sound when you say because. It's okay, thank you. But yeah, I think that you kind of blew your shot there because your first answer was a tad short, and I'm not quite sure about other teachers, but from my perspective, like the first question in like the third part of the speaking test is always very important. And also, I like to remind all of you of this. Like the first question of every single topic is crucial because your answer is going to leave what is called the first impression. A positive first impression is infinitely more important than, a last impression. It doesn't mean that you get to, just rest on your laurels and make like tons of mistakes towards the end. But like if you, do things nicely right from the get-go, it's just easier for you to get a higher score, or maybe I'm just splitting hairs and making things up. But it's just from my experience, whenever I can deal with the first question, like eloquently, it's a 9 for me. It's a 9 for me. But, when I struggle with the first question, it's often a 7.5 or an 8. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Tel.
Okay.
For Zui here, you can look at some of the recommendations for your vocabulary. Personal situations, your own business, your personal stuff, greater, not higher, greater sense of privacy. For Zhang, let's do this again. Most notably.
Most notably.
If you're trying to use it as an adverb, then it has to be most notably. If you say the most notable is, and while you're using as an adjective, right? Were you using as an adjective or adverb? Zhang, do you remember what you said?
Yes.
No, then. Look, I'm just trying to say that you have to be more accurate with your something or another, with your pronunciation, okay? But still, you pull through. You know what, Zhang? Like you can look at the note here and you understand my what you need to work on, right? I'm just glad that you were able to say something. Yes, girl. Do something, then say something. Okay. For Khả Anh, slashing money. Really? What were
I
you
was
saying again?
about to say splotch.
Oh, splurge.
Yeah,
Splurge or
splurge.
splash?
Okay. Yes, splurge.
All right, fine. I mean, I don't use that word, so I'm not quite sure how to use it. But the onus is on you, to prove your speaking ability. So look it up again. I tend to say, to splash out on things. Splash out. Yeah. Okay. For Hương, I have to say, unfortunately, in speaking part 3, what I predicted unfortunately came true. So your answer was sensible, but you made a mistake, which was grievous to your overall performance, in my opinion. When you talk about houses and apartments in general, you don't refer to them as properties. It's always property. It's uncountable. Okay. That's all. It's not the worst. It's not that worst. What were you saying again? You said something about the fact that like we don't really have to, prevent people from accumulating property. But you said something about, our country's condition, but I couldn't really make out what you were saying.
Maybe I don't really remember now, but maybe I'm saying that Vietnam is not in the position where you cannot accumulate a lot of property. Like
Okay.
maybe yeah, so it's like in Hong Kong or in some like Western countries, and we have a lot of slum areas. And I mean, like in Vietnam, it's not that bad yet. So that is my assumption.
That's fine. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I just thought that, there was that word sound. I'm not quite sure what you said, but I heard it, so I had to inquire about it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
For Miss Rina, you made some very interesting points. That's all. Okay. What else should I say here? I mean, I think that all of you managed to, I guess, focus on what you needed to focus on. So congratulations, everybody. You knocked it out of the park. Okay. Any question thus far? No? Yes.
So you do you really think that the only problem in my answer today was vocabulary only? Because it's not the way that it usually is.
Huh? One more time.
It's not the way that it is usually. So most of the time you kind of complain, or you leave a comment about something else, not just vocabulary, but today
The way that you
is
deliver your answer, your intonation, your rhythm, the way that you
yeah.
stretch certain words, and the fact that you face the certain sounds out as you speak, like your volume goes up and down in a way that is difficult for me to keep track of. Yes. It still happened today, but I thought that how should I say this? That's not that's not the dead horse that I want to beat again. Not today, that is. But I think
Okay,
that
okay.
you haven't really improved on that. But I was
Okay.
listening to you very attentively, so I guess that was the reason why I didn't complain about it. I still felt like there were certain parts during which your volume just dipped all the way down to the level of non-existent. Right. I did say something about
Okay.
that. It's just that overall, because I was paying attention to what you were saying, so it wasn't a huge problem. But I think that in the real speaking test, that could be an issue. Have you ever tried to scream at the top of your lungs?
What do you mean by that? Like scream at the top of my lungs? Like very loudly?
Yes, I meant what I meant. Have you ever tried that? Like speaking very loudly to get your points across? Like, well, I
Very
do.
rarely. I mean, I don't even remember the last time I did that.
Well, that can be a problem. I guess the reason why, like, I'm not quite sure about other people here, but I still can't give you, again, the benefit of the doubt because, there were certain parts, like you just sounded like you were unsure, and I'm not quite sure what was going on at the back of your mind, but your volume dipped all the way down to the point that I couldn't quite hear what you were saying,
Okay.
So you might need to work on your volume, that's all.
Okay.
Okay. Now, people, we're going to move on to the sample answers. It's not that big of a deal, to be honest. Okay, here I have a few very nice sample answers for you. Joel, please, this one. Do you prefer studying and working in a quiet or noisy place?
Well, I would go with the former. In the past, I used to like studying at noisy places because because I often studied with my friends. We should redefinish. Is this right?
Rendezvous. It's rendezvous.
Rendezvous at a
It's
popular
a French
coffee
word.
shop. At a popular coffee shop in the old
Quarter every week.
quarter every week to revise. But but as an adult, I find it really hard to concentrate when there are other people chatting next to me.
It was very ready, Cho. Again, it's not a habit that I like you to have, even when you're going through scripted answers. You still have to maintain your rhythm. You still have to stretch words out. I mean, say what you want to say, but I think that if it's a habit, you have to be able to do it without any conscious efforts. Right? I mean, I do that all the time, so I'm essentially imposing rules on you guys. This part here, the last part, but as an adult, repeat after me, but as an adult.
But as an adult.
No, but as an adult.
But as an adult.
I find it really hard to concentrate.
I find it really hard to concentrate.
No, I find it really hard to concentrate.
I find it really hard to concentrate.
I couldn't quite hear the word it. It was supposed to be there, although you should not put a lot of emphasis on it, but it has to be there. I find it really hard to concentrate.
I find it really hard to concentrate.
No,
I find really
you didn't. I find it. You have to it like the Joe. Like you tend to speak in a kind of way. I'm not quite sure how to say it, but you couldn't really pin it down. It has to go all the way down. I find it. I find it. You say I find it really hard. I can't do that because I speak in a different frequency. But your pronunciation is not trustworthy enough because you can't pin the word down. One more time. I find it really hard to concentrate.
I find it I find
No,
it
I find it.
I find it
The
really
T
hard.
at the end. I find it. I find it.
I find it really hard to
No,
concentrate. I find it
I'm being serious with you now, Chow. I find it. So there must be a connection. Find and it. Find it and then t at the end. I find it.
I find it
I find it really hard to concentrate.
I find it really hard to concentrate.
Really hard to concentrate.
Really hard to concentrate.
Hard, not hard. Hard.
Hard.
I find it really hard to concentrate.
I find it really hard to concentrate.
Hard. Stretch the word out. You tend to just, how should I say this? Like you tend to abuse your vocal fry. Like you speak, I don't want to say in the same way as Zui does, but you two have the same kind of pronunciation when it comes to certain words. Like you tend to phase out the sound a bit too fast. One more time. I find it really hard to concentrate.
I find it really hard to concentrate.
When there are other people chatting next to me.
When there are other people chatting next to me.
Okay, fine. Look, so I need to get the point across here. I do have to say that there's certain sounds you have to master in order for your examiner to trust you. I mean, for some of you, that'll be the ending sound, right? It is because like these are sounds that are super, super, super characteristic of the English language. If you cannot get them out clearly, there's no chance of getting a 7 because that's one, these sounds constitute a very fundamental part of English. So you cannot afford to pronounce words half-heartedly. You have to get all of these sounds out. But as an adult, I find it really hard to concentrate when there are other people chatting next to me. Like I don't speak like that on a regular basis, but if I really have to do it, I can.
Okay.
Right. Whereas for you, I think that it's mostly because you don't practice it often, or maybe it's because you have been exposed to a different kind of English for a very long time. So now you're accustomed to that kind of pronunciation. But I'm going to be very frank with you. You have to get to grips with all of these basic sounds. I'm not saying basic as in easy, I'm saying as in like fundamental. You have to be able to pronounce them. And you can do that sort of task at home, right? Just take out my script and then, you know, run these lines a few times. Make sure you focus on the ending sounds. Like I would go with a former. In the past, I used to like studying at noisy places because I often studied with my friends. We would rendezvous at a popular coffee shop in the old quarter every week to revise. But as an adult, I find it really hard to concentrate when there are other people chatting next to me. All of these ending sounds have to sound crispy and ready. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good luck. Let's continue. That should be it then. In general, I don't think that it's that big of a deal, you know, topics like quiet places. You can use some of the, hold on, wrong title. I got quiet, not quite. Quiet. You can use words like run down, right? And as I've mentioned, every once in a while, you should switch up your grammatical structures by saying, well, what's great about the building is, right, what's great, what's good, what's nice, what's fantastic about it. Okay, continue. Block out the noise, right? If you hate noise pollution, well, this phrase is for you. Down here, rendezvous is a very nice word. It means that you get together, that's all, but it's a French word. Chatting next to me. As you can see, there's not a single difficult word here. But you know, if you use fairly basic lexical items, you definitely need to bring it in terms of rhythm, right? You cannot say, well, I would go with the former. Like in the past, I used to like studying at noisy places. If you're rolling with basic words, not as an easy, but you know, fundamental, not that difficult, then you definitely need to bring it in terms of fluency. Okay. Down here, oh, the comings and goings of people. Nice. It means a crowded. You use this idiom to talk about places that are busy. You know, they welcome lots of people. That's all. I don't know for a fact. I suppose it depends. Young people probably would enjoy it because they might find this environment dynamic and fun, appreciate somewhere they more peaceful they can rest, especially after a hard day at work. Okay, a hard day at work is not exactly an idiom, but it's a phrase that you can learn. A hard day at work, a hard day at school. You know, you use phrases like that all the time. I mean, I certainly do. And I think that you guys need to build, you know, a certain habit of using phrases again and again. For instance, you don't say when I was, you know, a child. It's not wrong. It's just that, you know, it's a very common phrase. Why don't you say when I was a child, right? And you can say, well, when I was in third grade, right? Or whenever I go back to my hometown. You don't say whenever I go back to my hometown. There's nothing wrong with it in terms of grammar, but you know, these are fairly basic words, right? So you should make sure that you master phrases. Okay, down here. This is still not the focus of today's lesson, but let's analyze this particular script here. Okay, from here to here, Zui, and from here to here, oh, sorry, no, from here to here, Zui, right? From here to here, Anh, and from here to here, Giang. Now, people, just read. So today,
Yeah. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about my student's house. As I've mentioned, I'm working as a freelance teacher, and I do teach offline classes. So one of the classes is held in my student's house, somewhere in Long Biên district. It's a gated community with lots of privacy, and you actually have to contact the owner of the house to get in. I mean, I personally don't really know the way to get there since I'm not a good driver. And whenever I come, I have to order a grab car to pick me up. It's pretty nice though, since I don't have to brave the elements.
Continue. Thank you.
So I come to this place twice every week since I have a class on Tuesday and another one on Thursday. What I like about this house is the fact it is really spacious and well decorated. I also really appreciate how I'm welcomed by the nice air conditioner, which is crucial in this current summer heat that is in full swing. So we often have classes in the kitchen because there are lots of chairs and a gigantic table in the center. The room is huge and is convenient for the kids when they need a cup of water or something like that.
The house itself is very well designed. There are elements that I like, such as the color on the walls, which is a deep shade of blue. Then there are lots of paintings, which were painted by the kid himself. One thing that stood out for me, though, was
The last part did make sense. Zhang, one more time. So one thing that stood out for me though was
one thing that stood out for me was
you don't stop there. One more time. So one thing that stood out for me though, you have to connect these two words. There's no other choice, okay? One thing that stood out for me though was the fact that
one thing that stood out for me though was
okay, so on and so forth, okay? Zhang, I think that you and Cho need to work on shadowing a bit more often because yeah, both of you have that way of enunciating words. It's very Vietnamese, very Asian, which is not a bad thing in my opinion. It's just that, for the IELTS speaking test, they do evaluate you using a rather fixed set of criteria. So you know what, like Zhang and Cho, like if you just speak English normally to a foreigner, I think that they're gonna like your accents a lot, right? Because they're so used to like British and American accents and whatnot. We Vietnamese bring to the table a different kind of accent, right? But you two sound something like so beautiful, honey. That type of accent. I'm not trying to promote stereotypes here, but what I'm trying to say is that you tend to speak in that kind of accent. I think that it's endearing. I see nothing wrong with it, right? If you go abroad or if you need to talk to a foreigner, that's fine. But if you do the speaking test, it's not gonna, work in your favor because the speaking test evaluates your speaking skills, especially your pronunciation, in a certain way. So you have to go up and down in a natural way. So what is a natural way? It's not supposed to be natural for you. It's not supposed to be natural for you. It's supposed to be natural to the ears of the person that's listening to you. All right. So you can say, "You look so beautiful, honey. Can you do crystal gel?" Zhang, have you ever come across that sort of accent?
yes.
You speak in that accent. And personally, again, as I've mentioned, I've got your back in terms of, just normal conversations. If you're planning on taking a speaking test, though, you have to mend the way that you pronounce certain words. Okay. And Cho as well. Have you ever heard that phrase? You look so beautiful, honey.
I have heard that.
Right? Like that's what, Vietnamese people who go, to the US, that's how they speak.
Okay.
But it's mostly because they're not accustomed to, like some of the more fundamental sounds of the language. Okay. You sound like that, which is not a problem, in my opinion. Like when you're trying to communicate with a foreigner, they don't care about your accent. They only care about the message that you're trying to convey. And I think that, a Vietnamese accent is adorable, right? It's good, it's great. But if you're taking a standardized test, it's going to work against you. Okay?
Okay.
So fix it. Or maybe if you don't want to fix it, you have to do something about it or accept the result. Okay. Now, people, this script demonstrates what I tend to do in the speaking test. It's not something that I can do all the time, but, well, whenever I can do it, I tend to get a good score. Okay. The question is about the house of someone that you know. Now, the first part here, this first part here, do you think that it's like a topic specific answer or just, an amalgamation of some of the ideas that I am more familiar with? Now, Miss Rina, please, what is your opinion about this part? Is it topic specific? Miss Rina? Hmm? I can't hear you. My God. Are you sitting next to a hydroelectric dam that is releasing water or what? Oh, we can't hear a single word you're saying. All right, well then, Rina, Miss Rina, I want to move on to someone else then. Hương, please. Is this a typical or topic specific idea?
I think it's quite general. I mean, like there are some words that are related to this topic, but I think it's quite general. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is a typical idea that is patched up using ideas from other topics, right? So the first part is my job. I'm working as a freelance teacher and I do teach offline classes, right? That's all. That's really what it is. And then a bit of like specialized information, but then I talk more about my transportation there. I personally don't really know the way to get there. And since I'm not a good driver, and whenever I come there, I actually have to order a Grab car to pick me up. It's pretty nice though, because I don't have to break the elements. I say that all the time, right? When I talk about, be able to hop on cars to get to somewhere, I always say that it's pretty nice because I don't have to break the elements. Now, the next question is, Huong, do you know what I usually say when I have to hop on a motorbike instead? So, according to this idea, when I'm able to jump on a car to get to somewhere, it's a very nice thing to do because I don't have to brave the elements, right? So, can you guess what I usually say when I get to somewhere by motorbike?
So maybe you say I have to order a Grab bike so that you don't have to break the element.
A Grab bike, when you're on a bike, you definitely have to brave the elements. You're exposed to the sun and the rain. So usually when I talk about traveling by car, I always say that, my favorite part of the traveling by car is the fact that like I don't have to brave the elements, which is really nice, especially in this weather. And in the summer, I just can't bear to, be on the road when it's hot and sunny outside, right? But if I do have to talk about, going somewhere on a motorbike, I'm going to say, well, to be honest, my goal is to essentially to just make a beeline to the place because, traveling by bike in this weather condition is just not, the most ideal thing to do. Like I have to brave the elements, and usually when I get to that place, I'm already soaked, which is horrible. Okay. So what I'm saying is that like I can use this idiom in different ways. Okay. By motorbike, let's say something like, I tried to make a beeline for it. Essentially, I just try to get there as fast as possible because it was super hot outside and I was, braving the elements. The heat was unbearable. Unbearable. And when I got there, I was already soaked, which was embarrassing. Okay. So people, what I'm trying to say is that I have typical ideas that I employ in different scripts, right? When I have to talk about someone's home, I don't know how to describe houses like that. Right? You might be able to talk about, the architectural style of the place, the material that is used to construct certain parts of the building. You can talk about the fact that, the building is kept cool the entire time with, a large system of air conditioning. You can talk about, the shades of the colors on the walls. You can talk about the materials of the, pieces of furniture, but I don't have, so much vocabulary related to these things. So what I do is that I talk about other things first, just to find my groove. And then, once I've already, picked up steam, I'm gonna talk about things really, really related to the house. Okay? But this is a typical idea. Now down here, so I come to this place twice every week since I have a class on Tuesday and another one on Thursday. What I like about this house, again, every once in a while, try to use phrases like this to disrupt the pattern of your grammatical structures. I like it when you use phrases like this, so I highly recommend you to use them. What I like about this house is the fact that it's really spacious and well decorated. I also really appreciate how I'm welcomed by, the nice air conditioner, which is crucial in this, current summer heat that is in full swing. I need you to say it again, which is crucial in this current summer heat that is in full swing. There's a very particular rhythm there. One more time.
Which is crucial in this summer, which is crucial in this current summer heat that is in full swing.
If something is in full swing, it means that it's at the height of its effect. Okay, it's super hot out there, that is. So from this point on, it's very topic specific. From this point on, the rest of the script, topic specific. But Zui, would you consider these words to be hard?
So which words?
The words that are used in this particular part of the script, essentially 3/4 of the script. Would you consider these vocabulary items to be hard?
No, I don't think so.
Obviously. And it's mostly because I don't know so many things about houses, as I've mentioned, right? But I still got an 8.5 for this particular topic and a 9 in lexical resources, by the way. And I guess what I'm trying to show you is that, you definitely need to find your groove right from the get-go. You don't have to be super sophisticated with your word choices, but you have to be accurate. And when you use relatively basic, as in fundamental, vocabulary items, you have to maintain a high level of fluency, right? And I have a rhythm. You know my rhythm. I go up and down, I pause, and you can actually notice my pause from time to time. But overall, if I do have to go through a phrase, I'm gonna go through it in a very disciplined kind of way. So I'm gonna say something like, so I come to this place every week since I have a class on Tuesday and another one on Thursday. So that's my rhythm. I'm not gonna say, so I come to this place twice every week since I have a class on Tuesday and another on Thursday. I'm not gonna sound like that. Right? I don't speak like that. I have a rhythm. I want to say, so I come to this place twice every week since I have a class on Tuesday and another one on Thursday. Right? So that's my rhythm. I'm not quite sure what your overall rhythm is, but you, at the very least, you have to produce utterances, not words that are glued together. Right? So you should not sound something like, so I come to this place twice every week since I have a class on Tuesday. Essentially, that rhythm covers the same number of words, but if you speak like that, essentially you're enunciating one word at a time, which is not, what speaking is about. You have to have a rhythm. Okay, that's all. We're going to move on now. Now, this is the most crucial part of the lesson. And it's not crucial because there are lots of ideas. What I'm trying to show you through these sample answers is essentially, what happened to me many moons ago. Not many moons, but a few months ago when I got my first 9 with BC. Yes. So this was what that lady asked me on that very particular day. Now we're gonna role play now. You're just gonna ask me, or maybe not ask me, but I'm just gonna ask you questions and then you answer. All right. Now from here to here, we're gonna roll with Anh here, and then Giang here, and then Châu here, Duy here, Hương down here, and Miss Rina, if you can actually get to grips with whatever it is that you're standing next to, that cacophony, then you can turn on the mic. Okay. Now let's role play. Khả Anh, what types of homes are common here in Vietnam?
Well, there are several types. The first would be a normal houses or private mansions. Depending on where you live, this type of property can be relatively cheap or cost a fortune. For instance, if you buy houses in the city center, chances are you will have to pay a lot more than when purchasing an apartment.
Well, then how much more expensive?
Well,
I
I
don't know,
guess
like, sorry.
It's Zhang's turn. Thank you. Continue.
Well, I'd guess by a large amount. I'm not mistaken. A house near the city center can cost around $1 million, whereas an apartment is only half that.
Zhang, let's do it again. Well, I guess by a large amount.
I'd guess by a large amount.
If I'm not mistaken.
If I'm not mistaken.
Almost there. If I'm not mistaken.
If I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so apparently there is a difference in the ways that we cover these words. Do you notice that? There's a difference?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
I'd like you to do something about it. If you sound like me, it's better for you it's better for you overall, that's all. You can sound like you as well. It's just that, that rhythm is not gonna work with the speaking test, that is. However, that sort of individuality might benefit you if you're, going somewhere and trying to make a name for yourself, you know? That's all. That's what I'm saying, Zhang. You're preparing for the test. So my advice is for you to sound more like me or more like, whatever you hear on channels made by native speakers, right? For the sake of the test. But your accent is not wrong. It's not bad. It's also not like a negative thing to have. It's just that it might be an asset in other situations. For instance, when you go on, when you make it big as a singer and then you have an accent, it makes you more interesting because you have more dimensions. Like Celine Dion, right? She doesn't have a good English accent.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. That's all. Let's continue then. So why are houses in that area expensive?
Well, I suppose it is because it's like the nexus of business and cultural activities. There's a huge amount of traffic, and any building there can serve as a business venue, like a store, or perhaps something as big as shopping mall. Then big companies that construct and sell property might also pull the strings to make it seem like the property is highly coveted.
Highly coveted.
Highly coveted.
Coveted.
Highly coveted.
Not tit like that. It's tit. Coveted.
Highly coveted.
Not tit. You tend to tit like that. No, you have to get the sound out. Highly coveted.
Highly coveted. Highly coveted.
Tit.
Highly coveted.
You need to breathe the word out. Breathe the word out.
Highly
Continue.
coveted. Okay.
Highly coveted. Coveted.
Coveted.
Continue then. What are the benefits of living in a high-rise apartment?
So let's see. I feel that the most significant advantage of residing in a high-rise flat is privacy. And the reason here is that many apartment buildings place emphasis on security, controlling who can go in and out. So you don't actually have to have a code or a special card that unlocks the doors even before you can even reach the elevator.
But that's not something all apartments have, right? So you continue.
Oh, yes, that's true.
So what are some other advantages?
Well, I suppose you can also get a good view of the city if you want to see the beautiful Central Park or the busy street downstairs. Then a high-rise apartment can give you what you want, far away from the pollution and noises, of course.
Do you think that people should be allowed to own many houses?
I'm in two minds about this. I mean, there is a strong argument in favor of this policy, and that as long as people pay with the money they have made legally, they should be allowed to accumulate property and wealth however they choose. But then I do think that it can be problematic in the future, as the next generation will have a hard time buying a place for themselves.
So why are people willing to spend lots of money on houses? Miss Rina, continue.
Well, I would say it's because houses can serve as a form of investment and
Thank you. That should be fine. Look, what I'm trying to show you through these sample answers is that, well, this is something that happened to me when I took the test. Again, a couple of months ago when I got my very first 9 with BC. And look, essentially on that particular test, the examiner was like super inquisitive. Like she would stop me at virtually every single point, right? You can see that, all right, well then the each of the answer has already got quite a nice length. What do you mean by being stopped relentlessly? Like usually in the speaking test, I don't get like so many questions. And as you can see, these questions are super specific. They are essentially about the points that I have made. For instance, when I say, if you buy houses in the city center, chances are you will have to pay a lot more than when purchasing an apartment. And then she follows up with, how much more expensive, right? That did not come from the booklet, right? So, and then continue, whereas an apartment is only, half that. Like in the city center, right? A house near the city center can cost around $1 million. Why are houses in that area so expensive? And then continue, right? Down here, what are the benefits of living in a high-rise apartment? Controlling who can go in and out. So you would have to actually have a code or a special card that unlocks the doors before you can even reach the elevator. But that's not something that all apartments have, right? Oh, yes, that's true. Well, then what are the other advantages? So as you can see, this particular test feels more like, a conversation, as you can see here. But, like, I don't think that you're going to get examiners like that often. There are also examiners out there who tend to overdo things. I know this is a test, but, if you stop your candidate one too many times, it's definitely going to have an impact on their clarity. Like when you're talking to someone and the person just keeps on bombarding you with all kinds of questions, it's no longer a conversation. It's no longer even a fair test. It's an intimidation tactic to scare you off so that you can't form coherent thoughts and you can't get your points across, right? So what I'm trying to say is that, when you prepare for speaking part 3, you definitely need to, construct arguments that have depth, right? Depth. So on that matter, I think that, Joe, you need to prepare your ideas in speaking part 3 a bit more carefully. You can start with the questions that we have already covered. You can use my ideas for this part, and then you add your own you add your own thoughts to this answer, right? And you use similar mechanisms. Like you can talk about examples, you can give a reason, you can get a result. You can give it a result, and then you can I guess you can make your future predictions, right? The point is, like, you have to cultivate that way of thinking so that you don't end up listing points when you do the test. Okay, so you were there in the lesson about speaking part 3, right?
Okay.
Now the question is, were you there in the lesson about speaking part 3?
Yes.
We did a lesson on speaking part 3 specifically. Were you there?
Oh,
Like this one. Influences. Oh, you were not there. You were off that day.
No, em có cái hôm nào nữa à?
Well, so you need to have a look at this file. Or maybe I need to send it to you. Or let me send it to you right now.
Như là hôm nay em chưa bắt đầu học hay sao ấy ạ?
You were there. Sorry, you were already in the class, but you took some time off to that lesson or something. You started like everyone else.
Okay.
Well, you need to have a look at that lesson. You can watch the video, but most importantly, you need to have a look at the sample answers, right? These are obnoxiously long, as I mentioned in the video, but you need to apply the technique that is used to generate ideas in this way so that you can always have something to talk about without just mechanically listing things out, that is. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. That's all, people. This is not exactly like a standard collection of sample answers because in my opinion, these are a bit short these are a bit short to my taste, to be honest. Like when you do speaking part 3, oftentimes you have to construct your arguments. A bit lengthier, I think. But well, I was bombarded with all kinds of questions that day. So yeah, it is what it is. Do you think that BC examiners are more difficult than the IDP ones? No, they're in the same ballpark in terms of difficulty. Like, they're not difficult. It's just that you might be able to perform better in specific conditions. And I do think that your BC examiners tend to be more supportive in the speaking test. But that's just my personal opinion, right? So how should I say this? Like when, from my personal experience, because a lot of BC examiners are teachers for BC, British Council holds classes, right? So they tend to be more supportive, like teachers. They're gonna ask you questions, but not in an like interrogating kind of way. They're gonna ask you questions, but mostly in a very neutral way. For ITP though, not all of them are teachers. They're really just examiners. And if examiners are really there just to exam what you can do, then of course it's gonna be not all the way harder, but it's just that they're gonna give you a different vibe. And that vibe might obstruct you from like fully expressing yourself. That's all. That's all the time that we have for today then. No questions about writing. Any question, people?
Anh mấy cái link record là được up lên rồi đúng không ạ?
Cái link record để cuối tuần ý là ngày mai fix. Hôm nay gửi nốt cái gửi hết mấy cái sách đã nhá.
Dạ.
Ok. Bye bye.